Hi, everyone. This is Pastor Wayne Gosnell, and thank you for joining me today with this new video that I'm putting out. Today is the fourth Sunday of Advent. It's hard to believe, and then next Sunday is Christmas. So I'm wishing all of you a Merry Christmas right now, and let me start the video with reading from Isaiah chapter 7. Verses 10 through 16. And I'll be reading from the New International Version. Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz. Ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest depths or in the highest heights. But Ahaz said, I will not ask. I will not put the Lord to the test. Then Isaiah said, Hear now, you house of David. Is it not enough to try the patience of humans? Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel. He will be eating curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. For before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and chooses the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid to waste. And then from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 1, verses 18 through 25. And here's where Joseph accepts Jesus as his son. This is how the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph. But before they came together, she was found to be pregnant by the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you will give to him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage until she gave birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. And we ask the Lord to bless the reading of his word for us this morning. My sermon title is called The Plan. It was a daring plan. For eons, God had tried to get the attention of his people through the prophets and poets and priests. God had tried to get the attention of the people that he truly loved. God had yelled, he had whispered, he stayed silent, he shouted, but people seemed to be deaf to his call. God appeared in dreams, burning bushes, spoke through pillars of fire and fine manna from heaven, provided water in the wilderness and lands flowing with milk and honey, and still the people would not listen to him. It was a language barrier, God thought. They can't hear me. So God spoke louder and louder. Fiery prophets and judges and kings spoke with God's voice. They tried their best to call the people back to the love buried deep inside, but the words fell on deaf ears. The human race thought they were self-made, and so they ignored the messengers and the message. They created idols of wealth and greed and worship on the mountains of commerce, an idol called fear. Fear preached a gospel of abundance, me first, and self-centeredness. The people were divided from one another and surrounded themselves with others who looked and thought and talked alike. And God's heart began to break. They were made for love, God said. So God devised this daring plan of his. Instead of poets and prophets, instead of manna and messengers, instead of fires and floods, God would become flesh and blood. The creator of the universe, the one who called the cosmos into being with a word, the great I am, would take human flesh. But how would this come about? A baby. Babies, by their very presence, inspire hope for the future. But God as a baby had to be very special. Not the baby of a powerful queen or a savvy politician, but a helpless little baby born in a backwater town. God was going to become a nobody. I will be Emmanuel. God is with us to show them the face of love. But what if things go wrong? What if something happened to God as a helpless little child? That was the chance that love was going to have to take. God was ready. But it took a while and a bit of searching before the angel finally found a girl named Mary that said yes. Perhaps others politely passed or simply shooed the messenger away. But Mary, she said yes. But the messenger had forgotten about Joseph. Maybe Mary could convince him. After all, who doesn't like a little baby? It was scandalous. We haven't even gone to see the rabbi or even asked for our parents' blessing. Imagine what her mother will think or what she might do. Imagine what my mother would say or any mother would say. They tried to warn me that she was headstrong, but I never expected this. How could she? Didn't she think I would find out first? She is ruined. My reputation is ruined. But I don't want her to be stoned to death. No one should ever have to go through that. Maybe it would be best if I just quietly let her go. I'll sleep on it. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to call him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. But why her? Why me? Why here and now? We're poor and simple and powerless. Why would God choose to be born here? It just doesn't make any sense. I don't want to be responsible for raising God. What happens if we mess this thing up? How do you ground the creator of the cosmos? God is with us. The time had come for the baby to be born. All those years of loving and longing and hoping come together in this one seemingly insignificant moment. At last, God could speak our language. In Jesus, we are reminded that throughout the lives of our ancestors, throughout our lives, and even in the lives of those yet to come, God is with us. God was with us when times were tough, when the weight of the world seemed heavy on our shoulders. God was with us when the whip of bondage weighed heavy on the backs of the people of God and freedom was a dream. Emmanuel, God is with us. God is with us through the struggle and the storm. God is with us in our stumbling and our shortcomings, in triumphs and our thanksgiving, in the midst of the messiness of our lives and the days we seem to barely hold it together. Still, God is with us. God will be with us as we travel into the unknown, as we venture on deeper waters and uncharted paths. God will be with us in the silence and in the shouts, in our liberation and in our longing. In Jesus, God was, God is, and God will be with us always. The thing is, we as the people of God and the followers of Jesus Christ forget that all our lives, our loves, our longings are caught up in a God who became flesh and blood and bone and body to be with us. Ours is not a deity that is far off and aloof from us, removed from our humanity. Instead, ours is a God whose hands dug into the rich, fertile ground and was able to say, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground. God is a God who knew hunger and longing and even hard work. God is with us is both a pledge and a promise that no matter where we find ourselves in this life, even in death and beyond death, that we are never, ever, ever alone. Our world longs to see God with us. Behind the fear, the divisions, the divides, we long to connect with the divine, to look for the holy in the midst of all the confusion in our world. As followers of Jesus Christ, we are called to be grounded in the truth that God's love is more than enough to cast out our fear. We know that God comes to us again and again, seeking and searching and sowing love. To know, to truly know, and to rest in the holy knowing is to recognize that in Jesus Christ, God is in charge. And no matter how much we try to cling to the past, no matter how much we long for what has been, God is always pointing us to the future. When we get out of our own way, when we stop worrying about buildings and budgets and pews and pledges, the real work of walking with God in the world begins. The sacred and often scary work of clothing the poor, feeding the hungry, welcoming the stranger, caring for the foreigner, honoring the immigrant, and blessing the other is why we follow Jesus Christ. Maybe, just maybe, we should start loving and living and believing in it. The birth of Jesus is not an event that happened some 2,000 years plus ago. The birth of Jesus, the Messiah, happens again and again and again, each day in our world, if we stop long enough to recognize that God is with us. God coming to our world will always be scandalous because it means that any of us could be in the presence of God made flesh. Listen. Listen now. Can you hear it? Off in the distance, it's the sound of a new baby's cry.